All right, let's close out this second game against New Zealand for the United States women's national team. Talking about this back line specifically, Emily Sonnet, and Emily Fox coming into the match as halftime substitutions. And look, let's lean into Emily Fox a little bit. One of these players making their impact immediately on the pitch coming into this game was a player that was essential to what was ultimately the third goal for the United States women's national team. We saw her grab the ball on the left flank, was able to carry up nearly end line and just sort of sent in the beauty of a cross. And it was one of those ball ins that you're looking at and you're like, where is this going to go? Who's this going to land to? What's going to happen? It was one of those sort of chaos creating type of services into the box, which you'd love to see from your attacking kind of outside backs. But you see this ball kind of get to Trinity Rodman at one point, but a New Zealand defender scrambled for a block, and then you sort of see the ball kind of ping pong around within the six there, and it just unfortunately for New Zealand lands to the absolute right person at the absolute worst time for them, because Mallory Swanson just puts everything behind it and gets this into the back of the net. You could sort of see in her celebration the fist pump that there was just no way she was going to miss that with all that space in front of her.
No way Swanson was ever going to miss that. She's right at the PK spot. It lands to her perfectly, and she buries it. I think you started this by talking about Emily Fox. It was 2v1 for Fox on the flank, and that's, she likes that challenge. She wants that. She wants to beat not one, but two defenders, and that's kind of how this unfolded. But for Mallory Swanson, this is the start to 2023, the start to a World Cup year that Swanson could only have dreamed of. A third goal of 2023 in 2 matches, third straight game with a goal for Swanson. She now has 28 career goals, breaking a tie with U.S. Soccer Hall of Famers Joy Fawcett, Shannon Box, and now she has sole possession of 22nd on the U.S. all-time scoring charts with that 28th goal. This is a career start for Mallory Pugh, and this is the momentum that she needs to be gaining and picking up right now, heading into a World Cup that's just a few months away. But this third goal in the 53rd minute from Swanson opened things up a little bit more for this team. We saw a lot more freedom. We saw them just picking apart New Zealand's back line, finding those holes, and understanding how all of this happened. Because the first goal and the second goal, the first one for Hatch in the opening 23 minutes, and then this third goal were pretty much identical, with like a great curling cross behind the back line and then runners running into it. And that's where the United States can find so much success getting those crosses in. And that's what we saw in the first 60 minutes before we saw that 60-minute mark with the substitute. The subs come waving in. I'm always like watching the clock. I'm like, all right, 58, 59, who's warming up, who's coming in?
I'm with you, because I think them getting that goal like in the opening 10 minutes of that second half, I'm like, okay, well, everything appears to be going to plan, right? Whatever the coaching staff had presented the team to go out there and execute in this second game appeared to come to fruition. And I was like, okay, once that third goal happened and within the opening 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, I won't be surprised if we see additional substitutions here in this sort of hour mark. And we did. And then the beauty of having the multiple substitutions is you get to see more players, in action. And we saw 3 players come off and 3 players come on. We got to see Purse. We got to see Christy Mewis. We got to see Lynn Williams out on the pitch, Trinity Rodman, Ashley Sanchez, and Ashley Hatch coming out. So it was a full Washington Spirit lineup change there with the players coming out. But I was excited to see Lynn Williams get some more time on the pitch here. I thought it was good for her to see some more time coming in. And I think we have to talk about the most curious sub coming on into this one. We saw Taylor Korniak get more time in this match, but not just any old rinky-dink time. We saw Taylor Korniak come into this match to get more time in that defensive number 6 role for Andi Sullivan. And that is the area that I want to talk about. What was your feelings when you saw some of these substitutions come on in?
Why wasn't Sam Coffey being substituted in? That was my thought. I'm not sugarcoating this for anyone. Why wasn't Sam Coffey being substituted in?
I don't know. Let me get the coaching staff on the phone. Hold on.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I mean,
I
don't have answers for you, but
that was my initial thing. I mean, we talked about Kristie Mewis getting time in this game. We both wanted to see her. We weren't sure if we were going to see her. We didn't see her at all in the first game. We talked about Margaret Purce. We wanted Midge Purce to get more time. She had a tremendous first 45 minutes versus New Zealand in the opening match. I wanted her to get significant times, and coming in at the 60-minute mark for Hatch, I liked that. I really did like that rotation. We saw what Hatch could do getting the opening goal. I think Hatch also kind of had a chip on her shoulder being called back into this roster. And Lynn Williams coming in for Rodman. I think that was a good substitute. We wanted to see more of Lynn Williams. And I like Taylor Korniak. I do think she should be on this roster, and I do think she will be on this roster moving forward. But I don't think that she is going to be in the 6th position. I mean, she brings something to that 6 that Andi Sullivan doesn't, and Sam Coffey doesn't, because she's over 6 foot, and she does have very good foot skills to be able to navigate out of really tight situations. But I think the development of a player like Korniak in that 6 role is going to take a little bit too long. Yes, she's got experience, more experience playing professionally than someone like a Sam Coffey, but Sam Coffey has the experience playing in that position more so than a Korniak. And I think Sullivan did well throughout the first 60 minutes of this game. I really did. I think I was pleased with Sullivan and what she could do, but I would have loved to see Sam Coffey in there with Kristie Mewis and Rose Lavelle at this point, especially with Rose Lavelle in there playing a little bit deeper, to see how Sam Coffey and Rose Lavelle could play deeper in the midfield together. But I mean, that was it. That was my only thought about this substitute. I was like, okay, great Williams, great Mewis, great for Purce. Yep, Hash, Sanchez, and Rodman coming out, but where the heck is Sam Coffey?
I hear you on that. I think, look, I don't think it's an unfair point to bring up. I think it's an interesting point to talk about. I was curious if we were going to see the impact from Korniak that you want to see in that position. We ended up seeing a huge impact by Korniak in this game. It was off of a set piece goal, which we'll talk about these 2 goals in a second. But I don't know if there were any more additional questions that were answered in that particular role on the pitch by giving, Korniak an additional, what was about half hour at this point. So maybe 70 minutes or so. And then the roll over the course of the 2 games. But there were two more goals that happened in this second half. We're talking about these substitutions because, again, these are players that made their impact for these in these 2 final goals of the game. We saw Lynn Williams get on out there and start to really make her presence felt. I love that she continued to develop her minutes over the course of this second game. We saw at one point Rose Lavelle was just an absolute menace out there on the pitch, and New Zealand just was really getting tired of it. And we sort of see at one point Lavelle kind of get stood up and kind of taken down to the ground, but then all of a sudden you see your winger get in for a foul as well, immediately following this sort of contact on Lavelle. And it's Lynn Williams with her first yellow of 2023 stands up the falling player and earns a yellow. And in that sense, I was like, wow, what a great defending winger here. You love to see it. But shortly after her arrival into this match, she provides an assist on the 4th goal for Rose Lavelle, who made this ridiculous run into the box. A ridiculous left-footed kind of half volley situation going on. That was the other thing, that a lot of these goals that were happening were just like really beautiful goals. Rose Lavelle continuing her amazing game in this second half. And then Taylor Korniak, the other sub, coming in. Rose Lavelle providing an assist on this one in the 80th minute. Just 6 minutes later, a dead ball situation. We've got a corner kick, and listen, at that point, at this stage in the game, you just lobbed it to the tallest person in the box, right? In that case, it's Taylor Korniak for the United States Women's National Team, and she heads that one away and barely has to get any hops to do it.
On the fourth goal, scored by Rose Lavelle, the assist by Williams, the hockey assist was Taylor Korniak.
Yeah.
She's ends up being pretty deep in midfield. She's right around the halfway line, and she's got her head up, and she sees space. And Williams wants that. Lynn Williams wants that all day, and it's a difficult ball bouncing in behind the back line as Williams is just racing it down as fast as can be, and she ends up just volleying it and centering it as a cross for Lavelle. So it wasn't maybe as clean as people would have liked, or as the first 2 or 3 goals were as clean, but it doesn't matter. Rose doesn't even hit it right, and it finds the back of the net. Those are, you want to see pretty goals. You want to see the build up plays that look like you drew it up, but you also want to see the messy ones, the scrappy ones that players are just doing what they can to get on the end of a ball. And that's how that fourth goal was, the assist from Williams and the goal from Rose Lavelle. And then Taylor Korniak's goal, I mean, it was the main aerial target is Korniak. And on this corner kick, she just rises above everyone and redirects it. No one even guarding her essentially at this point. It was really good. She loses her defender though. Like if you go back and watch the replay, it's not that New Zealand has 2 defenders on Korniak and she still ends up getting the ball. She does the work off the ball before the corner is sent into the box to lose her defender.
Created the space, absolutely.
Hard, and then she checks out back, understanding where the ball is going to go, and then she still uses all of her God-given talent and height to jump up and redirect it. But there's a lot of off-the-ball work, and I think that's of why she was subbed into this game. Those moments like that.
I think I refer to it as like she barely needed to get any movement on it. She barely needed to sneeze to get any height on it. It was cool to sort of see that there's that kind of bit of an X factory type of asset to this team, you know, as they move forward in the build up to the World Cup. I don't know. I am curious if there was enough within these 2 games, right, within these 70-ish minutes, for the coaching staff to continue utilizing Korniak in these roles. And I think perhaps, you know, maybe that's where it comes when we're looking at things in terms of the pool of players, what that maybe means for somebody like a player like Sam Coffey. So like, this is a player that we desperately wanted to see get minutes in these 2 games. I know you're bummed that we didn't, but it does make me curious, because at this point, if we're looking at the timeline, not only to the World Cup, but the timeline for some players who have been involved with this team, like we're looking at Naomi Girma, who really started to get time with this team in 2022 based off of her rookie season with San Diego Wave, and really performing well in kind of what was considered at the time a little bit of a depleted position due to injury. And then I think you also make the case for this number 6 role for this team in the middle third, and you see somebody like Sam Coffey get involved, probably closer to around that CONCACAF W championship, right?
Someone who got called in late. She got called in late due to an injury to Hatch.
Well, had also spent time in that very brief June window in those friendlies against Colombia, and got called in to July because this was a player that had spent time with them just before they left to Mexico.
But it's sort of been CONCACAF roster. She initially wasn't.
No, she was not. She was not on that final roster. And I feel just sort of since then has kind of been a feature in some of these camps, but hasn't necessarily been given those minutes, right? So I am curious if there is something, if there's enough here within these 70 minutes that the coaching staff is going to want to continue to see Korniak utilized in these roles, especially because of how she is providing in other areas when the game calls for it. But I'm also curious in terms of like, you're also looking at the cohesion of things moving forward at this point. So you're looking at who else is called in this game. You're looking at, we saw 4 Washington Spirit players on this game and this pitch together, and we've got an Alex Morgan and a Taylor Korniak who play great football together for the Wave. Are all these contributing factors moving forward? And we heard coming out of these camps, and I guess that's where we're going to sort of close out this show now, Lisa, is general thoughts on this overall camp, because something that we heard coming out of these 2 friendlies in New Zealand over the course of this January camp was that the coaching staff has narrowed down the pool once more. They went from about a consideration of 40 players to now about 32. So for you, I want to hear, like, what are your final takeaways from these 2 games, and what would you sort of rate, or what are you taking out of this January camp for this team?
When I look at kind of what you were just talking about between Korniak and Coffey and Andy Sullivan in there, Korniak and Sam Coffey are incredibly different players at the 6, right? I mean, anywhere on the field, but at the 6 specifically. Taylor Korniak is going to give you that offensive presence. She's going to be aggressive and offensively minded throughout the game because she traditionally has played an 8 or a 10 higher in the midfield. Whereas Sam Coffey is going to give you a little bit more stability defensively. And maybe it's a little bit more out of her comfort zone to push up so much higher and contribute into the attack. Maybe something that we've seen historically with Andy Sullivan, who has sat back so much when Blackman-Anofsky is urging someone like Sullivan to push up higher. And maybe that's a similar sentiment to what Coffey is doing. And when you look at the competition against New Zealand, the United States wasn't defensively tested, right? When you just overall stats summary, 22 shots for the Americans, 0 for New Zealand, 10 shots on goal, obviously 0 for New Zealand. Corner kicks 6-2, offsides 3-0. New Zealand didn't have any offsides, right? They didn't even have those opportunities. So that's something.
If you go back and listen to the games, the episodes that we did about this, we don't really talk too much about the defense in these games.
Exactly. So you're not going to play someone like a Sam Coffey to see how well they're going to do defensively in the 6. You want to play someone to see how they're going to do offensively in the 6. And we saw that with Taylor Korniak, getting up, creating those spaces, getting double assists, getting goals in this game. We even saw it with Andy Sullivan and her role being pushed a little bit higher out of that 6. So the questions that were asked of these players were not so much, hey, how tight can you be defensively and compact? It was more, how much can you contribute into the offense when you're in that 6 role? And I think that's something that Blackman-Anofsky was looking at specifically in these 2 friendlies and throughout January. Offensively, who is going to be our strength? Who is going to be our starting 5 in the attacking end? So that's the 3 forwards and then your 2 attacking midfielders, and who's going to be the next players in rotationally coming in. We also didn't see any time from a player like Haley Mace defensively. And that's something that I know you wanted to see. You had her listed on your roster coming into it, but I think what was learned in this January camp is that this team can turn it around from one friendly to the next and change the way they start a game. You've got young players that maybe can play a role for you in coming off the bench and bringing that spark. But when given the chance to start, I'm looking at a Rodman, I'm looking at an Ashley Sanchez, they're going to bring it and they're going to prove you, which makes them more valuable as a player, perhaps as subs in the 60th minute when you have World Cup competition and really tough competition. I think I was really pleased with Rodman and Sanchez. I think they made their point a little bit more on this roster as to why they should be there.
Oh, I'm with you. I think those are part of my bigger takeaways, I think, out of this camp.